Okay, so in a prior video, I discussed my thoughts on Gears of War Reloaded's overall rationale for being, its very reason for existence, its purpose. But, to be honest, that part of the discussion is less interesting to me when compared to today's topic, which is to say, how does the first Gears of War campaign play nearly 20 years later? Because yes, as a shinier HD version of 2016's Gears of War Ultimate Edition, which in itself was a major graphical overhaul of the first Gears of War that maintained the gameplay of the original, Gears of War Reloaded is essentially a repackaging of the first game in a franchise that I'm actually incredibly nostalgic for. Because, you know, when I dwell on Gears, Halo, pizza, and, while I was asleep, a sexually repressed friend searching the high number channels for some low quality pornography, I think to myself and go, damn, that's childhood. And with that, I was curious how the main story mode of this near 20-year-old game played in modernity. And yeah, to be honest, Gears of War's campaign still holds up rather solidly with Gears of War Reloaded. While sure there are some dated elements that are rough around the edges and would later be ironed out in the games that followed, the core gameplay mechanics in Gears of War remain good. And to begin, let's first discuss Gears of War's legacy, because for those who are uninitiated, Gears of War was among the most influential AAA video games of its era. Released in 2006, around 20 years ago, wow, that sentence is giving me severe back problems, Gears of War firmly established the cover-based third-person shooter as a viable subgenre. Sure, cover-based third-person shooters, or games with third-person shooter elements, existed prior to Gears of War's release, but Gears of War's cover system was a game-changer, mostly because it was simultaneously easy to use, all while featuring a wide variety of options that other games lacked at the time, attributes that Gears of War Reloaded still reflects. For a few examples, rather than utilizing the left movement stick, holding the L trigger, or leaning in and out via the directional pad, the player takes cover behind walls with the snap of a single button. Then there are specific moves the player can perform with that button by pointing the left analog stick in a specific direction. The player can move side to side on a wall. They can crouch. They can climb over a wall. No relation. If there is another wall to their side, the player can spin from their current wall to the next one. And the player can move out of cover into a run, meaning that there's just a lot of options for the player here, because Gears of War's sturdy control system rarely behaves out of hand and accurately responds to your stick movements and button prompts. Moving on from the basics of the cover mechanics though, Gears of War's firefights and action all by itself remain exceptional as well. Where many third-person shooters of its era have this tendency to be stop and pop, Gears of War's combat is more varied. While yes, the game requires the player to take cover more than most games, at least on hardcore and insane difficulty, and to be clear, hardcore is how the game is meant to be played in my humble opinion, but Gears of War was a step above the competition. The player can blind fire both their ballistic weaponry and grenades. There's the many diverse weapons that spiced up the traditional third-person shooter regimen. Sure, there are sniper rifles, shotguns, and rocket launchers as expected, but the game also contains the likes of the torque bow, which is a bow that shoots explosive arrows that can be charged both in and out of cover, though this can be dangerous because once you start charging, the bow will fire after a specific amount of time, so you have to be careful not to explode prematurely.
Phrasing?
The Hammer of Dawn points at targets for a satellite to unleash a space laser on enemies, but it's also a weapon that takes some time to charge, and you can't blind fire with it, so using it leaves the player exposed. And the grenades are flails that can be used in melee combat, so once you stick an enemy with a grenade, prepare to fucking book it out of there like Josh Hawley on January 6th. And that's all even before diving into some of Gears of War's other core features. There's the active reload mechanic, which is kind of like a game within the game, where you time your reloads, which depending on how successful you are at gauging the time of the active reload, can net you bonus damage, or allow you to reload faster if your timing was just okay, or a delayed reload if your timing is awful. Because if you're anything like me and have executive dysfunction, be prepared to suck. Then there's the cooperative element, where levels, while linear, are designed to where there are multiple avenues for players to work together and flank enemies and the like. There's the fact that the locusts are just a really damn cool adversary with multiple different enemy types ranging from humanoid to spider crab monster to my arch nemesis's mother, which are all just a blast to fight. And then finally, close quarters combat is important even despite Gears of War's identity as a cover-based shooter, something that most notably can be seen with the Lancer, which is the franchise's iconic assault rifle that features a chainsaw bayonet at the end of it that can carve up enemies in joyously gory fashion, just like in Leatherface's wildest dreams. And then upping the ante in the close quarters combat, enemies and players too can also be downed, which requires a teammate to revive them or else they could be finished off, sometimes via a showy execution like a curb stomp, because it is definitely a thrill to squash locusts like fucking bugs. Additionally, Gears of War is very well paced. The game consistently tosses new challenges or ideas in an effort to alter the core gameplay or just break from it entirely, and doing all of this all while working with the game's cooperative element. There are vehicle sections, boss battles, firefights at night where you have to stay in the light lest you get eaten by demonic birds, Alfred Hitchcock style. There's the exploding wretches, sections where you and your co-op buddy split up and cover each other from different vantage points, and just so many other ideas, meaning that Gears of War's campaign just never really becomes dull. It's a rollicking good time throughout. The story and characters are fun and charming as well. Yes, I know many gamers joke around about how the protagonists in Gears of War are muscle bros who yell dumb action movie bullshit, and the script and the story are more than aware that it embodies the spirit of said dumb action movie bullshit, but you know what? That shit is a lot of fun and has its own merits, right? You know, because these muscleheads with arms thicker than an elephant's cock can be earnest and endearing as well. Because a story where the remnants of humanity throw a Hail Mary in order to save themselves from annihilation at the grotesque hands of the Locust Horde, who once secretly dwelled underground but had invaded the surface world around 13 years prior to the game's start, can make you care about the stakes despite the sillier aspects of the game. The game can make us care about its lead protagonist and the disgraced but very talented soldier Marcus Phoenix, who has a plot where he tries to redeem himself and win over his squad and military superiors, as a narrative and character that can have some weight even despite some of the game's sillier qualities. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that Gears of War might have a lot in common with some silly B action movies, but these elements work in sync with the overall narrative and character development. The game is just a fun time that you care about. Admittedly though, there are areas in which Gears of War's campaign hasn't aged as well, and for better or for worse, Gears of War Reloaded reflects these design inefficiencies. For a few examples, the Locusts don't really react much to being shot, save for flinching and stumbling when shot in the knees, meaning that when shooting them, their lack of reaction causes it to sometimes feel as if you're not really damaging them. There are various bugs and glitches in ragdoll physics that can admittedly be unintentionally hilarious. There's how some actions lack animations, the down but not out system is flawed because the person down can't crawl away, and so on and so forth, meaning that Gears of War can just be rough around the edges in many places, and the developers were clearly aware of these criticisms because many of them were addressed in 2008's Gears of War 2, which might honestly be the best game in the Gears franchise, but that's another video entirely. Instead, I'll just end this episode just by saying that Gears of War Reloaded's campaign overall captures why the original near 2-decade-old game was a big deal in the first place, even if this new shinier high-definition version also preserves the game's warts as well.